Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pondering Skulls podcast. My name is Bree, and today I'm reading I'm an Evil Doll, but I'm Not the Problem. And these will be parts 13 through 15. I've recently realized there's actually 20 parts in all. So, next episode will be something a little off the wall, random, just to have like a little break in the story. Um, but then we'll get back to the story and finish it out in a couple more episodes, I think. But, anyways, hope you enjoy the story and thank you for listening. Never thought I'd see one in person, Hive says, astounded. Seconded, Kaz adds. Thirded, Leo chimes in. 3.5, I guess, I finish. A bit of gallows humor as the morbidity and horror of the situation sinks in. JP is dead 10 feet behind us. Outside are at least 3 dozen of the bishop's agents. If we're lucky, most are just human. Judging by the way they move, though, I'm guessing not. I know a lot of you have been waiting for the reveal on Sveta. Werewolf. There, whoever placed bets, feel free to call your friends and collect. But I need to clarify something, because when I say werewolf, I know what you're thinking. What stands in the front yard, tossing humans and human-shaped entities away like used Kleenex, is so much more than that. I've stood in front of creatures, entities, demons, malignant, and a lot of things in between. Even from my point of view, they were all scary as hell. But the 20-foot demigod in front of me, this avatar of rage and nature, showed me what true fear was. At first, the members of the bishop's congregation draw firearms and start to unload. Panicked as they are, their shots can't miss the nearly structured-sized creature. The bullets didn't bounce off or leave a wound that heals instantly. They simply did nothing. No rational or irrational force, no magic field, no ward, just nothing. As if the universe itself was saying, "Don't bother." Quickly, those in charge stopped this despite Sveta beginning to tear through members of the congregation with ease. Leo smirks. "What's on your mind?" I ask. "Whatever they have boosting the wards, it's reaching its limit." "Makes sense. I don't care who you are, it's a bit fucking difficult to hide a werewolf." "They can't pull out the literal big guns, not that it'd do them any good, but it gives me an idea," Leo answers, clearly formulating a plan. "So she can win this thing, right?" I continue. "God, no. Once the shock wears off, someone will figure out what's going on in radio home base. But it's going to take time. Things aren't as simple as a silver bullet. And even if there were, who the hell carries around silver bullets anymore? There's 2 werewolves left, and I'm fairly certain no vampires. We cause enough of a scene, they're going to back off before the ward blows. Then we find a way to calm Sveta down and get the hell out of Dodge. You have no idea how important it is that she doesn't get killed. And I don't have the week it would take to explain," Leo explains. "If you'd have told me in my younger days I'd be dying for a cause, I'd have laughed at you," Hive says. "If someone told me I'd be doing so beside a hero, I'd have killed him," Kaz adds. Both him and Hive share a chuckle at this. "You 3, sharpen your claws or whatever you do. I need to go down in the basement and get ready to do a bunch of stupid shit," Leo announces. I think about using the proxy, but the thought of getting destroyed and leaving a rabid doll for the bishop to capture doesn't sit right with me. Hive begins to slowly grow, insects of every form starting to scuttle into the house en masse. By the end, he's a massive, twisted abomination, plastic stretched thin enough to be transparent, filled with writhing insects and organic masses I hate to call organs. Kaz limbers himself, contorting joints in ways no human could ever hope. His bones and muscles undulate below his skin, the pale, long-limbed entity rearranging his body into dozens of configurations, like a twisted form of yoga or maybe flesh origami. Me, I just watch, enthralled with the way blows simply lose their force when Sveta is struck or how fire snuffs out around her. I've seen things bend the rules of the universe, but a decent portion of those rules simply don't seem to want anything to do with something like Sveta. From the basement is a smell of ozone, or so I was told, and the sounds of power tools. The battle outside, a one-sided melee, rages for 10 minutes before Leo comes up the stairs. More than I've seen yet, the man is armed for bear. Modified pistols, something I'll call a shotgun for a lack of a better term, esoteric-looking devices and weapons of various forms sits in holsters and belt loops. Where a bloody bandaged stump once was, a hastily wielded blue steel fist sits, giving the middle finger. "We're 20 minutes away from death, and you took the time to be edgy," I say, pointing to the hand. Leo chuckles. "Couldn't replace it with something functional, so I had to improvise," the hero begins, grabbing the middle finger with his other hand and twisting it off, revealing a nasty-looking carbon metal spike. "I'm no pizza cutter. If it's edgy, it's got to have a point." It's times like this when it hits me just how complex this world of darkness is. Leo's best friend is laying dead on the floor. Chances are our grim fate is outside, but the hero is still cracking wise. There's something about that energy, that vibe. It's just as much a part of our survival as bullets, blades, and the paranormal. We stand at the doorway, taking in the scene before us. "Kaz, you and Hive go and try and minimalize the casualties and get Sveta calmed down. A lot of these folks have gotten an offer they can't refuse, and I don't want her having to deal with innocent blood on her hands when she comes to. Punch, you're with me. We're going to try and find where they're tapping into the wards," Leo explains. "And how do you suggest we calm down a lichen?" Hive asks. "Couldn't tell you, but between the two of you, there's millennia of experience. Figure it out," Leo replies. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. My first step was followed by a small caliber round bouncing off of my metallic skull. Leo grabs me, rushing to take cover behind the nearest car. Hive and Kaz cautiously make their way to the melee taking place between Sveta and the congregation. "Where are those shots coming from?" I ask, fear starting to flood through me. "Can't tell, but whoever it is, they're good. There's a 22, maybe a 38, and he's making shots from far enough away I'm not seeing muzzle flash," Leo answers as a handful of rounds hits the car. Leo risks putting his head up for a moment to survey the scene. A shot lands close enough to graze his cheek with the bullet fragments and shrapnel. "See that van near the end of the block? They've got to be in there," the hero says. A red dot appears on Sveta, almost inaudible pop. This time, though, a small patch of fur looks singed. She howls in rage and, without missing a beat, picks up a member of the congregation and hurls it at a house on the far end of the street. There's a horrific crunching noise as the agent's body is shattered against the peak roof. A splatter of blood and a small muzzle flash as the shot goes extremely wide. "Now go!" Leo yells, sprinting to a pickup truck closer to the possible source of the ward interference. The group surrounding the van has taken notice. What I'm guessing is their leader, a square-jawed man in a tweed suit, yells to the congregation and points in our direction. 8 members of the bishop's congregation walk toward us, each armed with some kind of hand-to-hand weapon. "Keep an eye on these. I'm counting 2 entities, 6 idiots. I'm going to try and keep things PG-13, Leo says, placing down the shotgun and some of the nastier-looking pieces from his newly made arsenal. He stands up, hands raised, not in surrender, but to show he's empty-handed at the moment. "It's been a blast, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you fine folks to leave," Leo says amicably. A woman with short black hair and wild eyes, wearing an ill-fitting pantsuit, chuckles. She brandishes a short, thick machete, with its tip ground to a fine point. This causes a man next to her, a 50-year-old who looks like he has no business being in any kind of altercation, to join in. He tightens his grip on a carbon steel survival hatchet. "Let's not start things off like that. You, lurch-looking motherfucker. I know you aren't going to see sense. Same with your buddy trying to hide his empty eye sockets with sunglasses at night in 2025. But you other 6, You aren't getting out of this alive. The war is only going to end one way, I'll admit that. But you guys need to be thinking about the battle. Leo grins as if he isn't the one completely outmatched. Without being in the proxy, I can't see it, but I can just about feel the forces Leo is working with as a physical sensation. He's in his element. This is what people like him were made for, as much as committing horror is why I was created. I look to Sveta as Leo continues, weaving that strange kind of spellwork he's capable of. At first, I thought she was slaughtering the members of the congregation, but the more I watch, the more I get it. She's not looking to take out her rage on the group. She's trying to track down the person who shot JP. Which isn't to say some of the bishop's congregation don't become members of the Red Mist Society, but she's responding, stopping those who get in her way, not killing indiscriminately. Kaz and Hive scream to her as they keep the more capable entities away. Twice she turns and looks, her piercing green eyes showing understanding. Not truly lost to some kind of ancient rage, but she's pissed, and in every way, she's came by that feeling honestly. When I look back to Leo, he's staring down a young, pale man in a short-sleeved dress shirt, making threats and promises that could rust the hull of a tank. Leo's charismatic shamanism taking on a nearly physical force. 4 of the humans make a break for it. Whether fear or good sense inspired the retreat, it significantly improves Leo's odds. The short-haired woman and a balding man with a crooked grin stand beside the 2 entities. Leo nods silently as if approving. He slowly raises the metal hand, its symbolic gesture obvious. The congregation members are visibly angered by the mockery. The man with the twisted smile takes a step forward, a small hunting spear in his hand, wide, flat metal blade catching the light from the street lamps. Before he can take his second step, Leo deftly twists the heavy steel case from the middle finger of the prosthetic hand and in almost the same motion throws it at the cultist. A sickening crunch and the man hits the ground screaming, trying to hold together pulped nose and cheekbone. The woman charges Leo heedless of her own safety. It catches the hero off guard. He doesn't mind sending these people to the hospital, but he wants to avoid sending them to Jesus. His hesitation costs him a slash across the forehead. He backhands the woman as he tries to wipe the blood out of his eyes, but she seems to barely notice the blow. I'm worried for him as the eyeless entity starts to silently walk toward the hero. My obliviousness cost me a kick to the midsection hard enough to dent the door of the pickup. The massive waxen-skinned entity stands in front of me, head impossibly angular, hands the size of frying pans. It grins down at me with flat, almost equine teeth. From this distance, it's clear this thing is nothing close to human. The bishop says there'll be a special place in hell for traitors, the entity says, stalking toward me with a confident gait. It'll seem like paradise after I'm done with you. In a flash, the massive abomination reaches down. I avoid being grabbed by sheer luck. I hit the ground and start to scuttle backwards, but I'm not in peak condition. JP's repairs got me on my feet, but my joints are grinding and hitching. A boot stops hard enough to crack asphalt, blocking my escape. Leo is keeping the woman and the eyeless thing at bay, but he can't make headway. He's devoting too much time trying to take the woman out of the fight without killing her. Evil or no, this lady feels no pain. Things are looking grim. The thing looming over me is faster than it has any right to be at its size. It's taking everything in me to simply not get crushed like an insect. The thing in front of me starts to become frustrated. At first, I think I can use this. That thought lasts all of about 3 seconds. It takes me a second to realize he's ripped a door off the pickup truck. He wields it as if it's nothing more than a pack of cigarettes and I'm an uninvited spider. He slams it down, no way to escape. I'm crushed between it and the road. Head ringing, pain bolting through my remaining flesh. He twists the door, grinding me between it and the ground. The entity casually tosses the mangled wreck of steel and plastic away, scowling down at me with satisfaction. I'm hurt, but I'm not dead. The steel in the door was made to crumple during impact, but thankfully my skull plate wasn't. But I can barely move. My consciousness starts to fade in and out. The towering entity smirks down at me, slowly raising one foot. He doesn't use his unnatural speed. He doesn't need to. It's taking everything in me just to remain aware. He starts to press down. I can hear my skull plate begin to strain, feel the connections between it and my flesh start to buckle and tear. My life doesn't flash before my eyes, but I do think of all the people that are going to be hurt because I wasn't good enough. I accept my fate, taking my gaze from the entity, wanting my last sight to be something other than his dead-fleshed visage. Then I see it. Guess I'm not the only one well-made instrument of violence on the street. Most of the items Leo left were destroyed by the door, but that oversized NRA wet dream of a shotgun he created sits just under the pickup, inches away from my grasp. I twist and squirm, my horrific pain screams mixing with the squealing of abused steel. Porcelain hands chip and crack as I drag them closer to the weapon. The entity doesn't see the barrel, and probably wouldn't care if he did. The twisted pleasure it's taking at my struggle has it enraptured. The angle is awkward. One ceramic digit snaps as I put all my force into trying to pull that trigger. The shot tears another door from the pickup and sends the weapon spinning into the night. One of the entity's legs evaporates from the knee down. It begins to fall. It's a full second before the square-headed, necromantic-looking creature begins to scream in pain and shock. The thundercrack of the firearm gives Leo an idea. He draws a hefty-looking pistol and fires it into the air. The eyeless entity looks as shocked as something without ocular organs can and focuses on the pistol, clearly under orders to keep the strain on the ward down. It's all the chance Leo needs. The entity grabs his arm, trying to wrest the weapon away. Leo buries the spike on his free hand into the back of the thing's skull. It hits the ground twitching, trying and failing to crawl away. The woman rushes him, holding the machete high. The hero's kick shatters ribs and dislocates a shoulder, but leaves the woman cursing and wailing on the ground, alive. Leo picks up the shotgun, cracking its soda-sized can barrel and inserting another massive shell. He walks over casually, as if this entire street isn't turning into a supernatural war. Properly aimed, the second shot evaporates the necromantic horror on the ground in front of me from the shoulders up. Leo reaches down, offering me a hand. We make a good team. Let's go make a complaint to the assistant manager over there. I take it, and we both look toward the van. Leo looking like divine retribution, and me trying to hide the fact that I'm scared shitless. It's just the guy in the used car salesman suit and whoever the battery is inside the van. I tell Leo close enough now I can get a sense of what's going on. Now would be a great time to find a better path in life, Leo says as we start to walk toward the van. My path is righteous, genuinely enjoyable, and boring, heathen. But your little friend, how he got there, that's an interesting journey, the man in the tweed suit says. Sent to kill a kid and his parents in a decade or so. Yeah, I've been reading the Reddit post too, Leo says dismissively. I love how hunters spend their life with an unknown, but still they think they know about it. The hubris, the audacity. You really think what you've been spoon-fed is the entire story? The man leans against the van, relaxed. I don't care how or why he got here. You can show your discord somewhere else. Leo pulls out the revolver as he speaks. Typical. When you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, I guess. But ask yourself something. What if the marionette there volunteered for the position? What kind of person would do that? I could be lying, of course, like you said, trying to sow discord. But then why couldn't your dead buddy find anything on who he was? The suit-wearing man smirks. Something about what he said seems to have struck a chord with Leo. The engines blend into the background noise of the conflict at first, but then we see them at the end of the block. 3 vans, just like the one sitting in front of us. Kinda depressing you'll be chewing on those questions for the rest of your lives. Chin up, though. That's only going to be about 10 minutes. The bishop's underling taunts. Fall back to the house, Leo says. What about Sveta? I reply, following him. Not much use to her dead, are we? There's at least 3 more human batteries in those vans, and I'm guessing a shitload of the bishop's best in cars behind them. Dying for a cause is one thing, meaningless sacrifice is another, Leo explains. Whoever was on the roof has their bearings shot hit around us in a tightening group. As we retreat, I see Sveta, Hive, and Leo. For fuck's sake, can the universe stop jamming it down our throats for 1 second? Leo exclaims, letting me know he's seeing the same thing. The humans have backed away, but Sveta is being swarmed by the most competent of the bishop's scouts. They aren't doing damage, but the dozen or so entities manage to hold on, slowing her down, preventing her from putting any one of them down for good. We stand by the front door, the bishop's fleet slowing itself to a crawl. The air feels thick as they work their vile power, the word becoming stronger with every second. It hits me then. For all my fear, at least I'm an active participant in this. Not those poor bastards around us, though. Those families caught in the middle of this pissing contest. The stuff of nightmares prowls their neighborhood, their lives a hair's width from ending. But that's not the part that scares me. It's the mental invasion, the ward reaching in and twisting memories and sights. How many of these people are going to lose loved ones and be saddled with some unshakable feeling that how they remember things wasn't how it really happened? The 3 vans fan out, flanking a half-dozen SUVs and station wagons. What comes out of them radiates evil and power. Probably not the bishop's A-team, but a cut above the slaves and minor entities we've seen. Goddamn numbers game is the problem, Leo says, confidence gone from his voice. His tone that of a traumatized war vet. Hive and Kaz has their hands full. I've got no tricks left to play, and none of us have any friends in a position to help. What do we do? I say, watching powerful entities and militaristic armed humans start to form ranks. A trained square of cheap suits, claws, and firearms that are illegal in any sane country plods toward us. I'm out of cool shit to say, Punch. We pick a window and fire through it till the bricks crumble. I'm sorry for the way I've been treating you. You're not just some pipe bomb. You've shown more humanity than most humans I know, Leo says, intending to turn into the house and meet his fate. But for once, in this power jog through hell, the universe throws us a bone. We hear the engine long before we see the large white HughEhhoule-like vehicle. It sounds like a dying beast. Windows rattle as it speeds down the street. Heat pours off the engine compartment in a haze, overclocked engine running nearly red hot. It hits the back rank of cars fast enough to make them scatter like bowling pins. I don't know how much about trucks, but clearly this thing has been reinforced. It doesn't so much as slow down. 2 of the vans get clipped, tearing side panels away, revealing tortured-looking individuals hooked up to all manner of ungodly and unscientific machinery. The tight-knit battalion of the bishop's soldiers try to scatter, but the street is narrow. Their own cars box them in. Half of them, and I'm guessing the human half, are either killed instantly or lay dying and screaming on the asphalt. I see who's strapped into a roll cage behind the wheel for a second before they jackknife the moving van. The tall, square vehicle, thrown into a tumbling, spark-fuming flight, lands on its side a few feet in front of us. The driver unbuckles dozens of straps, disengages the roll cage, and crawls out of a now doorless side of the truck. The chaos causes the ward to visibly strain. The night sky around us takes on a gray tone for a brief moment. Mike? Leo says, astounded. AKA the guy you assholes left to die with a handful of demons? Mike replies, walking over. I can't think of how to describe the way Mike looked other than to say he fit right in with the menagerie of lunatics and monsters around us. The black tuxedo with yellow trim was clearly clown related, but more French art film than bozo. His makeup was almost subtle, not war paint, just fitting, I guess is the right word. Don't worry, all that is behind us now, Mike explains, though I don't like the lopsided grin on his face. You're here to help? Leo asks. That makes it sound like I'm doing this for free. I've got 2 things I want. Or I'm more than happy to just walk away from this little jackpot you found yourselves in, Mike offers. See what's going on? The literal running battle here? Not going to be solved with a car crash and a juggalo, Leo retorts. I'm actually more upset about that comment than you leaving me for dead. Boys, Mike slaps the side of the truck, and seemingly on cue, something kicks out the back doors hard enough to embed them into a nearby car. I've seen some of the people and things that pour out before. It's a mixture of prisoners and guards from Pie's place. I couldn't be more confused. You brought an army. How the... You know what? Never mind. What do you want? Leo says, at least as perplexed as I am. First, I want to give JP's toy box the old once-over. You're right, I have an army, but I need equipment. Second, if we come out on top, you're going to tell a very specific story about tonight. You're going to tell it to anyone that will listen. I need a reputation, you see, Mike states. The smell of burning plastic and fuel, the chemical haze of flaming wreckage, makes the entire situation feel even more surreal than it is. Even when help arrives, it's a profiter. Sure, clown, take your payment. Give me your script. Now, are we going to stand here being melodramatic, or do we start taking heads? Leo says. I can always go for a little head, Mike replies, displaying an arsenal of his own expertly hidden within his suit jacket. And for obvious reasons, I'll be ending things here tonight. This is our chance. One mistake, one more bit of bad luck, and it's all over. If there's no next time, I just want to say, without you guys, I don't know what I would be doing right now. You have kept me motivated, kept me trying to be more than what I was made to be, and for that, I thank all of you. Punch. So what's the play? Mike asked Leo. We're trying to get our friend back to her senses so we can make an exit, Leo says, pointing towards Sveta, who is at this moment pinning down and attempting to consume an entity that is regenerating faster than she can destroy it. It feels like the bishop is done playing around. The survivors of the latest group shake off Mike's shock and awe tactics, beginning to form into squads. She's the one I'm getting a really unfortunate angle of. Tall lady, a bit hirsute, ripping out that guy's guts for the 4th or 5th time, Mike asks. You got it, Clarabelle. You and your mob keep your hands off the humans, though. I assume you have some control over them. Leo's tone surprises me. I'd have expected these two to get along great, but he's goading the clown. Mike grins. Half of his teeth are pointed and cracked. I can't tell if it's an old injury or self-mutilation. Anyone that lays a hand, paw, or tentacle on me or my colleagues pulls back a stump. Anyone that presses the issue won't have time to wish they didn't. You have a bad case of main character syndrome, you know that, right? Looked like it when I was keeping an eye on you, but meeting you in person, fuck's sakes, man. Mike taunts. Keeping an eye on me? Leo says, an unspoken threat in the words. Yeah, both you and the beehive you kicked were too busy keeping tabs on each other to notice. You think I just rolled into this Donnybrook looking to shed some blood? Mike says, shaking his head, then locks eyes with Leo. I haven't kept my head this long going into things looking to cause chaos. If that hand creeps any closer to that knife of yours, though, we're going to have a problem. I don't trust you, Leo says bluntly. You don't need to. I've got my own reasons for wanting to get in on the action here, and your pissing contest with the Flying Dutchman is an opportunity I can't pass up. Maybe someday we end up on the wrong side of the fence, but that isn't today. Unless you make it, Mike replies. The tension between Leo and Mike is contrasted by the absolute anarchy around us. The two simply stare at each other. Panic, fear, and more than a little annoyance makes me speak up. "You two are going to get people killed," I say, the ward flickering in the night sky as a hail of gunfire is aimed at Sveta. Shame blooms on Leo's face like a drunken flush. "You're right, both of you," Leo says. Mike looks more thoughtful. "I agree, 3 fart noises and a cough profound," he says, reminding me not everyone can understand when I talk. Leo grins, then laughs. "Let's try this again. Can you and your people keep the worst of the worst busy while Punch and I go get Sveta some breathing room? I'd appreciate a minimum of civilian casualties," the hero says. "I'm not what you think I am," Mike begins. "No one who hasn't made a lot of bad decisions is getting hurt tonight." Mike then taps something on his collar. The clown goes silent for a few seconds. "Subvocal mics?" Leo says, curious. Mike smiles. "But if anyone asks, it's telepathy." "Fill me in on this ward situation," he says, surveying the scene around us as he talks. The clown walks closer to the heart of the conflict as he speaks. We follow. "It can only hide so much. No way the bishop's folks stay if it blows. What's going on here is the kind of thing that'll get the G-men here in about a second," Leo says, trying to figure out what Mike is looking for. "Good to know. Chaos isn't my thing, but I'm good at getting attention. There's my new best friend," Mike says, pointing to someone I would have assumed he brought. It's an entity. Even from a distance, through the growing toxic haze, its proportions are wrong for a person. It's a rotund thing. I'd say it was shaped like a person, but beyond the fact I've used that many times, just now in fact, it'd be a lot more efficient to say it was shaped like a clown. A frog-like mouth filled with yellow crooked teeth, rotten-looking blue, red, white makeup, thick enough to look more akin to scales or fungus. Suspenders hold up torn, grime-encrusted, oversized pants. Meter-long feet clad in shoes that were once red but now crimson with gore and filth. Holding a stained sack with a jaunty pattern and a seltzer bottle full of brackish liquid on one hip. Creepy doesn't begin to describe the thing. "You're going to want to bring a few of your people if that's your plan," Leo says. "That'd be the smart thing, wouldn't it? But I'm not getting what I need out of this without a little flair. And honestly, if there's one thing I fucking can't stand, it's a clown-themed killer," Mike replies, surprising us both. "Seems hypocritical," Leo says. "No, it isn't," Mike begins in a matter-of-fact tone, as he starts to adjust his clothing and check a few pieces of equipment. "I can guarantee that thing doesn't have its face on an egg. Same with Gacy and just about every dickhead who slaps on some makeup thinking it'll make their bland ass scary. A killer clown is scary because it's both a killer and a clown. Those are 2 skill sets that require a lot of effort. The overlap is where things get really interesting." Not going to lie, seeing Mike talk about clown trivia and philosophy with zeal in the middle of all of this is in the top 5 strangest things that's happened to me. "Horseshit," Leo says. Somehow his tone is friendly. "Maybe," Mike replies calmly, walking toward the clown-like entity. "This is bad, Punch," Leo says, his voice almost lost in the din. "Kind of an understatement," I answer. "Not for us. Not just for us, I mean. You, me, Kaz. We can see this crap, be around it, wade in it, and be fine. Regular people, they can't. The ward is already having to dig around in their brains. God knows what the bishop put some of them through. There's a state's worth of boogeymen and women crammed into the city block, not to mention the fact a lot of this has been going on for weeks now. We can't let this drag out, not at the rate things are escalating. This is the kind of thing that can leave a scar on a place. Turn this little cul-de-sac into one of those places people tell their kids not to go. I'd be surprised if some people haven't already started to feel the effects," Leo explains. "It's a lot to take in. Just getting out of this without any more casualties seems like an impossible goal. But trying to end things quickly? Hopeless doesn't even begin to describe it." "What can I do?" I offer. "House at the end of the block. Get to whatever shot JP. Sveta's still Sveta. Once the deed's done, she'll get her shit together," JP replies. I think that's supposed to be Leo. Is that all? I say, the house is between me and my destination, looking a mile-long trudge worth through a war zone. Death march through a suburbia? Great. Same strange question, though. Did Mike look a little different to you? Distended stomach? Happens when you get starved and overdo it, Leo says, extremely confident. And with that bit of biological trivia, Leo turns toward the new vans and the collection of evil guarding them. The hero wades into a wave of people and creatures. Kaz and Hive struggle with the swarm attempting to neutralize Sveta. Even Mike seems to be finding his place stalking through the crowd. Me? I stand, all but unnoticed, failing to see any kind of direct path to my destination. I try and follow in Mike's wake as he strolls toward the clown entity. Unfortunately, this is one of those situations in which size really doesn't matter. I'm tossed and jostled, dodge, sprinting combatants from both sides. If a scrum of werewolves and knitted out lunatics, I'm pretty much an afterthought. I'm making progress, but it's too slow. The fighting around me has a kind of tempo, and with every passing second, it's getting harder for our eclectic little group to keep dancing. I'm hunched beside a recycling bin, stray rounds put instant, quarter-size holes in it, but I can't move. Ahead of me, the clown entity stands in a milling throng of violence. Behind me, survivors of Pie's factory and human members of the congregation engage in a battle of pistols and luck. Mike steps out of the crowd, shattering a windshield with his cane and pointing it at a clown-like entity. Well, look what we have here, the world's billionth clown-themed killer. Where are the balloons? The confetti? Mike asks, a manic energy beginning to take over his words. The entity simply stares, its vile, massive mouth slightly agape. A small creature with a childlike face and short, pointed limbs leaps at Mike. He drives the head of the cane through it, launching the body from the makeshift truncheon without missing a beat. What's the point, man? Seriously, you really think someone's going to hire whatever the fuck you are for a birthday party? Like you're going to be working a gig at Barnum's and Bailey's and no one's going to say, honey, isn't that clearly a demon or some shit? Me? Give me some makeup and I can walk right into anywhere. Children's hospital, bachelor party, wherever. You're a walking danger sign, asshole, Mike taunts. No reaction from the entity, besides a thin stream of pink drool and one massive gloved hand moving towards its bag. Mike walks closer, his fervor clear. A few of the entities around us begin to watch what's unfolding. Clown, the entity says, voice deep and grating. Jesus Christ, not enough that you're some kind of monster, not enough that you're trying to look like its plus-sized cousin, but you don't talk either? Let me guess, your shtick is being the avatar of overcompensation? You're what happens when too many edgelord tropes get too close together? Mike is within arm's reach now. The size difference between the two is staggering. From the bag, the entity draws a 5-pound sledgehammer caked in dried gore. Clown, it repeats in a threatening tone. Now you're speaking my language, Mike says, drawing and emptying a small, odd-looking automatic pistol into the creature. Slugs hit the ground. The clown entity walks forward unfazed. In reality, the fight was less than a minute, but with every one of those 60 seconds, more of the nearby crowd was drawn into the spectacle. The clown entity is an immovable object, a constant barrage of firearms, knives, and blows from the cane, causing superficial wounds at best. Mike twists and turns his body, walking over cars, corpses, and degrees as if they weren't even there. Acrobatics and contortionism keeping him safe from the worst of the blows. But even then, every glancing hit sends Mike skidding along grass-strewn pavement. In moments, he looks like the survivor of a car wreck. I've got to say, you're a damn good killer, but let's circle back to the whole clown situation, Mike says, walking around the entity. You don't actually think you're a clown, right? This is all just a work? Clown, the entity screams, taking a wild swing at Mike. The mist blows, sending a mailbox far enough down the block I lose sight of it. See, if you went to college, knew some basics, you'd have known what I was going to do there. Mike grins, moving his head inches away from a thrust of the hammer that would have easily decapitated him. Shit, you're taking this thing seriously, aren't you? That's even better. You say you're a clown. Name me one screamer march other than Entrance of the Gladiators, Mike asks. Now, I didn't get the reference, but the entity seemed to. Mike sees the blow coming. In a move that was half pirouette, half parkour, Mike rose onto the hood of a pickup. In the same motion, he twists at a nearly inhuman angle, launching himself from the roof of the truck. The clown spins in a random whipping lunge, Kane becoming almost invisible in the hazy night. I'm amazed. It's the kind of thing you'd see in an action movie. For good reason. The clown-like entity drops the hammer, plucking Mike out of the air like a fly. He holds Mike by the neck, a twisted look of glee and satisfaction on its inhuman face. Fear and shock wash over Mike. He scrambles and claws at the entity's hand. But the grip is beyond steel. The clown entity grabs the nozzle of the seltzer bottle, and with a brutal tug and a screech of rusted metal, I see it. The bottle was a sheath for a massive, barbed, punched dagger. Its polka-dotted paint job contrasting horribly with its intended use. Mike begs for a second before the 8-inch blade is buried in his stomach. The entity lets go of Mike's neck, holding him aloft by the blade alone. Mike screams, begs for help from me, Leo, God himself. The entity grins, slowly drawing its arm back. With a brutal display of strength, the creature pistons it forward. Mike is sent into a door of a white sedan 10 feet away. His internal organs largely remain on the wicked barbed blade, an almost comic-like streak of blood and gore trailing from Mike to his guts. My heart sinks. Mike struggles to rise and falls flat on his face. For a moment, the reality hits me. The evil all around me, the power, the scale, it's horrifying, overwhelming. The time where I felt like I was a danger to anyone or anything seems so long ago. The entity flicks the blade to the side, intending to fling the pile of organs onto the ground and continue its spree. Now, I'm sure you all agree I'm a pretty good judge of how organs act outside the human body. When the mass of flesh and gore didn't hit the pavement, I knew something was up. The entity, fortunately, took a little longer to figure this out. There's a glow from within the gore, then smoke begins to billow from it. Small, desperate flames try to take hold. The entity tries to drop his blade, but already it's fused to his hand. Metal red-hot and burrowing into unnatural flesh. Within another 2 seconds, the gore is burned to cinder. A white-hot blob of something about the size of a toaster is all that remains. The screech from the entity is so loud, so unnatural, it causes the ward to flicker. It tries to wave out the burning metal, some mixture of thermite and more esoteric ingredients from what I was told, and succeeds only in throwing unquenchable pieces of burning slag into other members of the bishop's congregation. Next, it tries to sever its own arm with its hammer, but the heat simply refuses hammer and the arm welding it to the increasingly hot metal. If the 60 seconds of fight felt like an hour, the 15 seconds it took the clown entity to die felt like a week. As evil as it was a miserable, pain-laden death. Around us is a circle of quiet in the battle, those closest to us stunned at the spectacle. Mike stands, casually cleaning up the remaining bits of intestine hanging from the hole in his shirt. He grins to the crowd. From my angle, I can see the remainder of the black plastic bag, and the thin Kevlar sheet behind it. I make a conscious choice to not ask where Mike got the organs for his ruse. But the rest of the onlookers, those that only saw the fight in quick glances as they fought for their own lives, they don't have that look behind the curtain. "There's your distraction, little fella, make use of it," Mike says, nodding toward the staring combatants. The ward flickers, then shudders hard enough to blur the stars. For a 10th of a second, the ward fails. I'm surrounded by Vantablack walls again for a brief instant. At first, I'm worried. Those things aren't just a warning system to me. They might as well be made of brick. Then it hits me. I run. Okay, scuttle might be a better term, as fast as my worn, damaged joints will take me, pushing the mechanical and the biological parts of me to their limit. That brief flash of my creator's safeguards let me know where things weren't looking. For something my size, the distance to the house was like a marathon. No, scratch that, it was a gauntlet. Even if I could keep track of who was brought by Mike and who was a member of the bishop's congregation, everything is happening so fast there's no time for explanations or argument. I feel tiny, fragile, skittering away from clawed hands and red dot beams, fractions of an inch away from death. But the further away from JP's house I get, the thinner the crowd becomes. Then I do what I do best. I hide. Moving through the shadows calms me a bit. I hate to admit it, but being away from the fight does too. I skulk, starting to feel more in control of things. I wish that extended to the feeling of dread and paranoia coursing through me like poison, but I'll take what I can get. The house is quiet, and as I climb into a cracked window, I feel it. Death. Brutal and hard. The place reeks of it, esoterically, and I'm assuming literally. I stand in a living room. It's clear a family lives here, scattered toys, a half-eaten package of fruit snacks, and a child-friendly collection of DVDs. Those dark parts of me, the evil shit I tend to avoid talking about, tell me there are two people in the house. Whatever is taking pot shots from the roof is something else. Slow, light footsteps coming down the stairs into the kitchen. I go limp, hoping to blend in with all the other toys in the deep shadow. Angela, where'd you go? A voice says, young, male, and lilting. When I see the 18-year-old walk down the stairs, I know what he is. He's the result of all of this shit. He's what happens when the human mind is a barrage with forces powerful enough to disguise a supernatural gang war. Fear and self-loathing fight for control of my mind as I realize my part in all of this. He's cut off his nose. Whatever he used to cauterize the wound left an ugly, blistered scar. He's wearing a hooded bathrobe, the cuffs stiff with blood. A pair of cargo shorts reveal legs covered in weeping, infecting wounds. Come on, kid, I'm bored. Mom and Dad stopped moving an hour ago, the young man says, tossing a vase into a ceiling rack of wine glasses. The cacophony draws a meek scream from a bedroom. The kid in the bathrobe walks absurdly on his tiptoes through the glass. With every crack and pop, blood hits the floor in small arcs. He wildly begins to pound his fists on the door. Inside, a small girl cries, begging him to stop. He does, for a few seconds, before starting to kick the door. It buckles, but whoever is behind it was smart enough to get something in front of it. Go the hell away! The small female voice from behind the door screams. That's a bad word, Ange, the young man says, punctuating the sentence with a gale of insane laughter. Better hope you figured out a way to put a dresser against the window, too. The brother sinks low, like a cartoon thief, almost crawling his way out the front door. I hear the girl inside moving things around, likely trying to figure out another makeshift barricade. Judging by the sounds, though, she's not having much luck. Of course, I feel that dark pull, that constant voice that wants me to do the worst things on earth. But that's not all I am. This kid, trapped in the middle of this senseless hellscape, she needs help. I start to try and come up with a plan, but I'm stuck. I can't talk to her through the door. She wouldn't understand a damn thing I'm saying. And let's face it, suddenly being face to face with myself isn't going to end with anything less than her running in the opposite direction. I check the vents, too small to move through, damn modern construction. Then it hits me, a Hail Mary play. When this all started, I dived headfirst into the horror genre, figuring I can't be the only one giving out some truth. A pattern I've noticed is codes. Horror today and esoteric ways of communication go hand in hand. Ciphers, backwards messages, you kids love that stuff. As I walk to the door, I hope the girl behind it is a member of the tribe. Back when I was a kid, we didn't have much like that, but we did have scouting. and Morse code must have been a badge I completed. I'm here to help. I tap in a loop on the door. With every tap, I look around the room, expecting some new horror to waltz in. I'm nearly at my mental limit. This whole event seems to be getting out of control. But after the third repetition, I hear a voice. "Who are you?" she asks. "A friend," I tap out. "It's safe. You need to get out." There's a few seconds of silence. My heart sinks. Then I hear the dresser being moved slowly, inch by inch, by someone barely strong enough to do so. She opens the door just enough I can make out a bruised, horrified face, dark hair and blue eyes that have seen much more than any child should. Her eyes go wide. She takes a step back from the door. I think it's me, after all. I didn't exactly start out as a lovable plush, and the hell I've been through has done nothing to improve my looks. But then I see, she isn't looking behind me. She isn't looking at me, she's looking behind me. "You said it was safe. They're still here," she says, face going white, backing away from the door. I turn as the weather outside begins to rain. A bolt of lightning lights up the kitchen behind me, and I see them. The toys scattered around the living room are perched in the kitchen, sets of tiny, unalive eyes watching me with a predator's curiosity. I'm surrounded, outnumbered, and with a 10-year-old behind me that just opened herself up to whatever wickedness these things have in mind. It's a grim situation, and where I'll leave you guys this time. I don't know how I'm going to pull out of this, but if I do, you guys will be the first to hear about it. Till next time, if there is one, stay safe, and for your own sake, keep an eye on your neighborhoods. Punch. I can't see them all clearly. It's more of a mob, a swarm of toys turned into murder implements. Dead eyes focused on the girl and I. Now, for the most part, I'd say take any advice I'm giving with a grain of salt. At the end of the day, what do I know? But I would hope my opinion on evil toys is something you trust me on. There's a difference between me and the encroaching mob. The way I look, even before being given my battle scars, I'm gonna be honest, probably not something you'd buy your kid. The last time a ventriloquist doll looking like myself was on a toy shelf would have been the 50s. I'm the kind of thing that's become more of a symbol of eerie than anything else. Up there with VHS tapes and CRT televisions. These things, though, they're kid-friendly, as ironic as that is. Of course, they're here to hurt us, but you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at them. This is usually where I joke about filing that away with all the other useless supernatural trivia I've learned, but at this point, I think I'm starting to understand things. The way I see it, I was made a couple of decades before these little guys. That tells me there is some difference, some change in how things are done between then and now. I'm in a panic, having to think on my feet. I try to drown out the girl behind me, focus on the task at hand. I won't name them here, but someone last week said something in the comments about taking a page from Mike's book. As the strangely photogenic mob gets closer, I figure it's as good of an idea as any. The crowd is talking to each other. Their voices become an unintelligible, garbled mess. I can understand bits and pieces. It must sound horrific for the child, though. 36 against 1, give or take? I've faced worse odds. I say, trying to emulate Leo and Mike as best as I can. Judging by the sudden silence, the mob can understand me as well. All eyes are on yours truly. "You assholes are gonna find out they don't make things like they used to," I say, feeling like a little bit of a badass if I do say so myself. In a flash, I replace one hand with one of my blades. "You know what I hate?" I say, starting to feel like I'm picking up steam. "Evil toys. Want to know why? The scary thing about an evil toy? Shit, that doesn't really work." Something from the back laughs, an electronic grating noise. I'm no Mike or Leo. I try and salvage the situation, taking on a sizable chunk of doorframe out with my blade. "Anyone who wants the girl is going to have to go through me," is my best attempt. The crowd reacts almost as one, driving towards the door. My attempt at intimidation, a miserable failure. I manage to slam it shut before any can get in, but already I hear the sounds of tiny hands and whirring miniature machinery. I hold myself against the door, fear overwhelming any confidence I may have had. If I move before the dresser gets placed in front of it, these things are getting in immediately. I'm hit in the head by something, a baseball, I think, then a book, then a snow globe. I see the girl, panicked out but determined. She looks thin, pale, angry, and scared. Bright green eyes contrast with the evidence of torment. She can't be more than 10. A jewelry box rattles the flesh inside my head. I try to put up my hand in a peace symbol. Well, the girl seems to gather her courage. Fuck you too, she says, the vulgarity with the seriousness of a child, using it for the first time before hitting me with a jar of nail polish. I look to my hand and remember my missing finger. I'm frustrated, but I get where the kid is coming from. She couldn't have understood my sad battle rant. Sorry, by the way, I'll up my game next time. And I just locked us in a room together and flipped her off. It feels like the crowd outside hits the door as one. I stumble but manage to hold the splintering door shut. I'm scared as hell, tired of playing this losing numbers game, horrified at the concept of death at the end of a war of attrition. I point to the dresser frantically. A television remote hits me in the stomach, but I see the girl look unsure. Outside the window, I hear something being placed against the wall. Giggling and muttered threats. Her brother. And on top of all of this horror, all of this fear, is that darkness within me. It's stronger now than it has been, a pull to do evil. More than just an intrusive series of thoughts at the back of my mind. It worms its way through my being like a parasite. Innocence right in front of me, defenseless, blameless, pure. It would be so easy to... I slam my head against the door, letting the pain of my rattled skull being my focus back. The crowd works together. I start moving forward centimeter by centimeter. The girl is scared, confused, and minutes away from death either way. She cautiously makes her way over, bending low and shoving the dresser. It moves slower than the door, the 10-year-old pushing herself to her limit just to make it budge. I pull with her and the weighty piece of furniture is in place before the mob makes its way in. I see what I'm looking for. Now why on earth a kid needs a cell, I don't know. But there it sat on a half-sized pink desk. I point to it, she turns it on and sets it on the floor, not willing to get close enough to me to hand it off. As you'd expect, the service itself was interrupted. Thankfully, I found something that could help. Do I wish it wasn't the magic horsey voice app? Sure, but at this point, any port in a storm. I'm not with them, I want to help. I type, the phone rendering it in a voice that would be downright hilarious in any other circumstances. What happened? The girl still looks unsure, but as a tiny drill pierces through the door, she starts to talk. I'm Alex, and I don't know. A while ago, things started getting scary. Noises outside, lights flickering, ghosts kind of stuff. Then Steve, he's my brother, started acting weird. Mom and Dad didn't think it was anything, but she starts to shudder and cry. He went crazy. He hurt them bad. Then the man in the attic came with the toys. Seems about right given how far the bishop is willing to go. I listen to her story, trying to parse some way out of the situation, but I can't take my mind off of the potential for violence. It feels like I can physically smell it at this point, a cloud of barbecue smoke wafting by a starving man. I've taken 2 steps toward her, blade out, before I stop myself. I put the weapon away, the temptation is too much. But other than the worst thing possible, what can I do? I'm not Mike or Leo. I'm certainly not Kaz or Hive. I'm just a fucking doll, an evil one at that. I try to type something, a message of reassurance, but the urge to do violence is stifling. I open my head, letting the fresh air wash over my bare flesh. I don't exactly breathe, but things feel less stifling all of a sudden. The child is shocked but curious at the same time. I let my senses drift, unfettered by the dampening of the magic-infused head. It happens slowly, but I see something within Alex, a glow. At first, I have no idea what it is, but on an instinctual level, I understand. I'm seeing a soul, or at least as much as my creator could let me see. This is the thing that is causing me so much strife. This is the beacon to those dark parts of me. I tear my sight away from her, looking toward the door, the dark thoughts becoming too much to handle. Then I see something that makes so many things make sense. It looks like a field of stars, the same kind of pure glow coming from within Alex. The toys, the mob, each has a portion of a child's soul bound within. It wasn't the tiny morsel in front of me that was setting me off, it was the buffet behind the door. And this is where I understand. My creator had to have seen this coming. What I'm for, my real purpose, isn't some slow burn revenge story. It isn't the tale of some half-assed necromancer flinging a toy at the problem. Out of all the powers we've seen, the one that even Pi seemed impressed by was foresight, which I'm positive my creator had in spades. See, I'm sure all of you would agree, the amount of spooky things that started off as a kid were pretty huge. By the time you've finished reading this sentence, I guarantee you've thought of 4 separate examples. My cover was a child killer, a nasty little device meant to do one of the worst things imaginable. But my purpose, as I see the dozens of tiny fractions of soul, is clear. I'm what does the dirty work. I was made to put an end to things others might not be able to do without destroying themselves mentally. Leo and Mike would walk through the mob behind the door. But what happens to their minds when they understand they snuffed out an eternal essence of these tortured victims of necromancy? I like those guys, but putting more stress on the structures that aren't up to code in the first place isn't a good idea. I've dubbed my feelings of evil and violence the monster. And you've seen a couple of times where I've given into it. But I've never really let it take the wheel, never really listened to it. It's always been leashed, tempered. Now I get that. Those things behind the door, they have one thought on their mind, and it's doing exactly what they are doing right now. No shame, no moral conundrum. Just the tortured remains of long-dead children being comforted in the only way they can. If I was like that, I'd be useless. Just another pipe bomb in some evil arsenal. But everything has a time and place, and right now is the time to let the monster have its say. Scream, as long and as loud as you can, I type on the phone before putting it down. Alex obliges, being the kind of loud only a 10-year-old with nothing to lose can be. She covers the sound of me cutting through the drywall between the closet and living room. As the chalky material falls, my body tingles with anticipation. Things are so clear, so simple. Instinct and forbidden knowledge run through my mind. I move through shadows, crawling up the wall with ease. I see the crowd, each toy pigeonholed into a specific task. Given some kind of implement of torture or destruction hidden within their cheap plastic forms. They don't see me. They don't hear me. They're focused on nothing but Alex. I've wondered why my creator didn't give me more weaponry, make me more like the proxy. But as I lean into what I'm meant to do, embrace the dark side of me, it makes sense. I'm not like them. I'm flexible. I can adapt. I can think. The world is my weapon. I cut a length of cord from the blinds as I silently crawl by, looking into the crowd for my first chance to test my theory. I'm no longer in pristine condition, but I managed to crawl along the ceiling just fine, staying out of sight. Surprise makes up for a lack of speed. I take a member of the crowd unaware, a generic G.I. Joe or Action Man type. The cord plucks him from the ground and I drag him into the master bedroom. The only reaction from the crowd is a brief look and psychotic-sounding laughter, their minds incapable of self-preservation or empathy. It tries to fight, but for once, I'm not the smallest in the room. I drag it by one leg. I'm not looking to fight a damn thing. I'm looking to commit murder. So many choices, but one stands out to me, a flat iron. The toy feels no pain as I immobilize it, cheap ball joints shattering easily. I plug the iron in, setting the possessed toy between the rapidly heating elements. After a few moments, it begins to smoke and bubble, not hot enough to ignite, but becoming soft and pliable. A look of understanding in the eyes of the toy for a brief second. The more I go with things, the more I understand, the more secrets the monster has to tell. These things, they weren't crafted like myself. They're not much more than a bit of sentience crudely spliced into some plastic. What I need to do is separate one from the other. Leo would have some kind of zinger. Mike probably would have made things look like he did with them with his mind or something. Fights are public. Murder is done in the shadows. I stomp the elements, the nearly liquid toy spraying into long thin streams of plastic that cool in midair surrounding a central smoking mass. The noise it makes cracks window panes, a scream of anguish as the simple energies emanating it are pushed beyond their capacity. Debate in the comments all you want about what I do next, but realize you're not going to change my mind. I get what I am, what I'm made to do, and how I work. I take what's left after the magic is strained beyond what it can do. The scrap of soul hits me like a shot of adrenaline with a Coke chaser. Call it cruel if you want, but there's a live child about one Home Depot special door away from death. I'm doing what I'm made to do. The crowd sees the aftermath. Something large, purple, and simian-looking breaks off, loping towards me. It speaks madness and gets no reply. I run toward the thing, turning at the last moment and skittering into a kitchen cabinet. As the infernal furnace inside me burns through the piece of soul I consumed, I smell the flesh inside of the ape-like toy. This one is more meat than puppet. The bottle of olive oil I throw explodes on impact with the floor. The ape-like toy makes horrific noises in response, thinking this is a missed attack. The thick leather pad of its feet makes short work of the field of broken glass. They're not as good at keeping the creature upright, though. I'm guessing it weighs around 20 pounds. The meat stuffed animal is around my size, and could probably give me a run for my money in a fair fight, stolen soul or not. Glad I'm not fighting. Glass pierces the cheap fur, slicing into an eclectic combination of skull, hands, and feet underneath. No elegance went into making the thing. It's byproduct of some lunatic sick attentions held together by trauma and the magical equivalent of duct tape. Tendons are severed, long dead muscles torn. The more the creature tries to rise, the more of itself it destroys. Each fall onto the oil-slicked ground, driving more glass deeper into it. I leap from the cabinet, slamming into the thing. Bones shatter, and the both of us slide into the living room. Teeth shatters as it tries to bite me, the ape-like toy enraged at its falling limbs. I could end things with a stomp, or if I was feeling merciful, a single stab. But the monster doesn't do things that way. I crawl up an entertainment unit, the ape-like thing dragging itself toward me by its chin. It's a tasteful white porcelain urn, the name emblazoned on it sparkle. Makes me assume it was for a pet. I shatter the top, creating a jagged, almost saw-like blade of the opening. I taunt the simian toy, tilting a stream of ash down on it as it tries in vain to drag its mutilated body up the entertainment unit. It's like I can see how the urn will fall. Every tilt, every spin, I pick my moment and push it from the shelf. It lands in a spray of ash and shattering porcelain. The first couple of inches of the opening remain embedded in the hardwood floor. On the outside was the creature's body, still twitching, looking up at me from inside the jagged porcelain shards of the thing's head. I take the mangled, dripping head, ducking low and sneaking back into the living room, feeling its scrap of soul begin to course through me. A memory, strong enough to border on hallucination. Gray walls, bars, orange jumpsuits. Was I in prison? I'm talking to someone. White guy, bald head, lots of tattoos. He seems worried. I point under the bed. The man retrieves something, handing it to me. I inspect the object, knowing what it is. As I see the prison lighter, I notice I'm not wearing a jumpsuit. Must have been a guard. I stumble into the room, dropping the head, the memory breaking me from reality for a second. Alex is still screaming, God bless her heart. Finally doing what I was made to has been fun, but if I keep going at this rate, these things will be in here, missing members or no. I motioned for the girl to get to the far wall, realizing my glimpse into my past wasn't random. The idea it puts into my head satisfies the monster. Do I have to tell you all not to make a prison lighter at home? I shouldn't, but I will. Don't do it. The door is held together by Hope and the dresser as I cut a cord from the gaudy, sparkling, encrusted lamp, then separate the leads. One pencil later, I have the single most dangerous, inefficient way to probably start a fire possible. Water bottle, handful of bottles of the dollar store kids' perfume, and some crayons thrown in for some good measure. I know I have to let them get in on their own. If the door suddenly opens, the base cunning left in their almost instinct-like minds will sense something. I wait and I watch, one hand holding the plug an inch or so away from the wall socket. They burst through, tearing back pieces of the door. The weight of the crowd pushes the dresser away, the toys crawling over each other in their zeal to get to Alex. I plug the cord in an instant the graphite in the pencil glows red. After a second, a piece of wood sparks from the pencil, then all hell breaks loose. It's not an explosion. That takes a lot more chemistry knowledge than I have, but it's an extremely vigorous reaction. Plastic, alcohol, and wax turn to liquid as the power surges and breakers blow. The burning material doesn't spray, so as much as turns into a molten liquid carpet covered in a dull blue flame. The mob is bottlenecked like crabs in a bucket. They drag each other backward in their desperation to kill Alex. It's not napalm, but it doesn't need to be. Carpet, spilled books, and broken pieces of door begin to catch, intensifying the flames. I feel on top of the world. Transcendent wouldn't be an exaggeration. I feel like I'm not only in control of the situation, but I'm part of it. For all of about 4 seconds. Shattering glass, paint-peeling vulgarity, and Alex screaming. The window is broken. Steve leans through, trapping Alex in a sloppy chokehold. The sight throws the monster into the back seat. Fear and uncertainty flood my thoughts. I know I have to stop Steve, but the things getting into the room aren't going to be taken out by fire alone. But Alex isn't given up without a fight. She claws and struggles, catching desperate breaths. I know I have to trust her. If I don't stop the mob, we're both dead. I turn to the encroaching creatures. The fire isn't making their journey easy. Joints start to fuse, glass eyes pop, and tin springs are turned to slag. But they keep coming. Screaming in rage and pain, they keep coming. It scares the hell out of me, watching these metaphorical cousins of mine tearing themselves apart to get to their goal. But the monster begins to whisper, and I have no choice but to listen. I grab a pillowcase and stare at a molten plastic dripping baby doll. I slam the thing into the spreading pool of burning liquid. Flames catch from the burning droplets as the creature screams and dies. I feel its essence coursing through me. I catch glimpses of who it once was, and the horrific things that brought it to this point. The crowd are making headway, but each passing second and the growing conflagration takes its toll. Rapidly, they are starting to fuse together. I would have assumed this to be the end, but the monster knows otherwise. The energies pushing them forward are simply enough this doesn't matter. Within a half-minute, it's an amorphous, flaming blob, dozens of screaming faces propelled by melting, deformed limbs. I can't let the fire do my work for me. The strength coursing through me is more than I thought possible. I lift a sticker-covered floor mirror, opening my head, wanting to have as little as possible between me and whatever happens next. It explodes in a spray of shards, crushing and tearing the slug-like blob apart, squelching all but the worst of the flames. Soul drifts from the mass like steam from dumplings. My body hums with the trapped energy. I turn to Alex, and monster or no, when I see the 2-inch piece of glass sticking out of her eye, I feel like a piece of shit. But even this isn't stopping the kid. Blood and fluid stream down her face like tears. She's turning blue, her strength waning. I want to run, to save this kid, to buy a little bit of goddamn soul back. But the monster isn't something I can flick on and off. It's a part of me. There's a wet crunch as Alex thrashes, then buries her teeth into one of the many gaping wounds on Steve. He has no reaction, but in a spurt of sick-looking dark blood, Alex severs something important. His arm goes limp, days of self-mutilation leaving his body vulnerable. I'm walking toward them now, sauntering across a shelf close to the window. Steve begins to fall, a look of understanding on his face. The bastard grabs a fistful of Alex's hair, slamming her into the wall and dragging her toward the serrated remains of the window. I look out the window, expecting to see a psychotic glee on Steve's face. I don't. I see a young man, broken and coming back to his senses at the worst possible time. He's not trying to kill her. He's holding on for dear life, one foot precariously balanced on the ladder. I grab his wrist, unholy energy giving me enough strength to hold him aloft. I scrape Alex's hair against the shards of glass, freeing her. Steve looks up to me, pleading, literally begging. It isn't a long fall, 2 stories or so, but Steve is already so torn apart it's instant death. The flames in the room are dying, thick acrid smoke wafting through the house. I hop off the shelf, doing my best to keep the monster's attention away from Alex. The discarded phone is cracked and melting on one side, but manages to let me get one message before it dies in wisp of yellow smoke. Get to the next town and get to a hospital. Find some family far away. Alex looks to me, one eyebrow raised for a moment. I make a god-awful hissing noise to drive my point home. She leaves, of course, walking out of the house that will haunt her nightmares for years to come. Me, I have a supernatural gun nut to deal with. And that's where I'm going to leave things for now. The battery on Alex's laptop is dying, and I know if the mob was this bad, whoever is upstairs is going to be a lot worse. To my friend in the comments, hopefully next time I get a chance to bust out a zinger or two, I don't want to disappoint you, though I think I might be more of a grower than a shower in that regard. Till next time, if there is one, keep an eye out of your window. Punch. Okay, everyone, I hope you're enjoying this story as much as I'm enjoying reading it. Like I said in the beginning, this is the 13 through 15, and next episode will be something totally random and different, and then after that we'll get back into it going through 16 through 18, and then we might add an extra part of the story into it next time, so you might get 4. Not sure yet, but anyways, if you like this, please like and subscribe on YouTube, and if you like this on Spotify, or hopefully we're on iHeartRadio too, please leave us a review, a like. If you want to comment, you can comment. But anyways, hope you're enjoying the story, and we will see you next time for something totally random and different. And until then, goodbye!